Hi, my name is Kevin Niemiller. I am a solutions architect here at Losant. In this platform walkthrough, we are going to go over 2 slides and then jump into the Losant Enterprise IoT Platform to show you how you can build a complete IoT connected product with Losant. Let's jump in. Losant is a cloud-agnostic IoT platform that provides enterprises the complete edge and software foundation to build and scale compelling IoT products for their customers. With Losant's highly available and highly scalable platform in place, these enterprises can start building their IoT product on day one without having to worry about all of the complexities that are involved in building and maintaining an IoT platform. Losant provides 5 main components to help our customers build their IoT product and get it to market quickly. Let's check out those components now. As you can see, the Losant platform helps our customers get data from edge devices and other data sources to a multi-tenant end-user experience. Let's quickly go over each of these components and then jump into the live demo. So, edge compute. Our edge offering really comes in 2 forms. The first is the Gateway Edge Agent, which is a Docker container and can be installed on any gateway that supports Docker. Once installed on the gateway, our customers can now build edge workflows in the cloud and deploy those edge workflows to one or many gateways at the click of a button. This Gateway Edge Agent provides a secure communication channel over MQTT to the Losant platform so that we can now deploy logic at the edge, communicate on local protocols such as BACnet, Modbus, and OPC-UA to name a few, and to send commands from the Losant platform to those edge devices. The second part of the edge offering is an embedded edge agent, which is designed for lower constrained devices and sensors and gives our customers a lot of the same features that the Gateway Edge Agent has, such as building edge workflows in the cloud and deploying these workflows to edge devices and sensors. Devices and data sources. Losant devices provide a virtual representation of your physical objects. It is equivalent to a digital twin where we can easily see real-time and historical data of these devices. Data visualization. Data visualization refers to Losant dashboards, which are a quick and easy way to view the real-time and historical data of your devices, as well as the ability to send commands to your devices. Data visualization also includes an integration with Jupyter Notebooks, which is one of the top data scientist tools. Now that Losant has all of this time series data saved, you can now run Python code with Jupyter Notebooks to perform batch analytics. Visual Workflow Engine. This is the main component of the Losant platform and our customers' IoT connected products. There are 4 types of workflows that all use the same workflow engine, which is a low to no code drag and drop engine to build these visual workflows. We have already touched on 2 of the 4 of these workflows, which were the gateway edge workflows and embedded edge workflows, which allow us to build edge workflows in the cloud and deploy those to edge devices. The next type of workflow is the cloud or application workflow. These are deployed in the cloud and are typically used to ingest data over MQTT and HTTP, pre-process data, post-process data such as generating alarms and warnings, integrations to third-party software and applications, to deploy business logic and track KPIs. The final type of workflow is the experience workflow. Now that we have collected all this data, we want to expose that data to an end-user experience, which requires a custom API. Experience workflows enable our customers to use the same workflow engine to build that custom API to expose the data to the end-user experience. End-user experiences. This component enables our customers to build that multi-tenant end-user experience that allows all of your customers to log into one application and only see the data they have access to. Any modern web application can be built to give a fully custom branded user interface. Our customers have the option to build and deploy this end user experience with a framework of your choosing, such as React or Angular, or build that front end HTML, CSS, JavaScript code directly in the Losant platform. Let's go ahead and jump into the Losant platform and see how we use these 5 components to build an IoT product. So I'm going to go ahead and switch tabs here now. You'll notice up here in the top left corner, there's a blue Losant icon. that represents that we are in the Losant backend, the Losant platform. This is where the development team would go to build this IoT product. If we go ahead and go down the left nav screen here, we'll see a lot of those components that we were just talking about. So we have devices, dashboards, Jupyter notebooks, the visual workflow engine, and end user experience. Starting with the end in mind, let's go ahead and check out what an end user experience looks like first. So I'm going to come up here and switch tabs. So this is the end user experience that we're going to be working with through this demo, and we're really going to show how this entire IoT product has come together using those 5 components. So on this page is all custom HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Like I said, you can build any modern web application you want. If I go ahead and scroll down here, we can check out some other generators. I can click on one of these generators and see more details for those generators. You'll notice that this dashboard that you see here looks a lot like that first dashboard I showed in this other tab. So if I go ahead and flip back, we can see that. With Losant dashboards, we give you the ability to build these dashboards quickly and easily, and then expose those into your end user experience. So let's go ahead and jump in and show how we build these Losant dashboards. And to do that, let's go ahead and build this battery voltage block that you see here. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the back end some more, and I'm going to show you Losant devices here. So if you remember, Losant devices are the virtual representation of your physical object. Each generator that we saw on that end user experience is represented by one Losant device here. So let's go ahead and jump into one of these Losant devices now. If I click on this device, Losant devices are really made up of 2 things. So one of them are device tags. And these are the device tags that I have set up. Device tags are a great way to put metadata to your device. Typically, we have at least one unique identifier. In this case, we have a serial number. We can also include other things like the model name or model number. We can put things in here like the firmware version. We can put things in here like who the customer is and what location of the customer site that is. What this allows us to do is use our dashboard or use our workflow engine in order to say, hey, give me all of the devices that are of a generator, or that are of a specific model, or that are at a specific customer site, things like that. And then we can take all of those devices that were returned and do some sort of aggregation across all of them. The second thing that Losant devices are made up of are attributes that you see here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on attributes. So what attributes are really the time series data that we want to be collecting for this device. Any of these attributes that you see here, as data comes into the Losant platform, we can see live debugging of that data come into our device log here. All of this data is being saved into our time series database since each one of these is associated with an attribute over here. We can also see recent device state by clicking over here to kind of see some of that historical data as well. So we talked about battery voltage and exposing that in a dashboard. So let's go ahead and open this battery voltage one up. What we're going to do is we're going to flip to the dashboard now and show how we can expose this battery voltage attribute into the dashboard. So flipping tabs here now, I'm going to go ahead and go up to the top right, and I'm going to click on the settings icon up here. I'm going to go ahead and click add a block. And you'll notice that we have a lot of different blocks that we can add here to get you up and running quickly with that data that we just showed on that Losant device. So we have time series graphs, GPS blocks, we have pie charts, bar charts, image overlay blocks for things like a floor plan or a SCADA view. We have input controls for bidirectional control of the devices, device state tables, connection logs, indicator blocks. Basically, if we don't have a block that you need, you can build your own block using something like this custom HTML block. In the case for battery voltage, we're going to use this gauge block. So I'm going to go ahead and click customize here. And you'll notice that when I start clicking into the block header text, it's going to update over here in my preview window. So let's go ahead and do that now. Battery voltage. Let's scroll down For now, we're going to do a duration of last received data point. I'm going to come down here and select a device ID. So I can select my one device here. I'm going to select that attribute that we saw, which was battery voltage that we had on our device. In this case, we're not really using aggregation because we're using a duration of last received data point in only one device. However, if we were to select more devices here, or use that tagging mechanism that I mentioned, such as a specific model, that is when the aggregation takes place. It also takes place if we select a duration longer than just what that last received data point was, since we're pulling in historical data now as well. Let's go ahead and jump back to just one device and last received data point for now. We're going to go ahead and select a gauge type of a battery for this one. Let's go ahead and put volts in, and we'll do something from like 11 to 13 volts, and we'll make this orange. Now if we scroll down, we can add conditions here. And you'll notice that there's a handlebar template here. So we use handlebar templates throughout our dashboarding and our workflow engine. And what it allows us to do is really pull in dynamic information. So in this case, the value within the handlebar template right here is using this value that was queried up here from whatever devices we have and whatever attribute we selected and whatever that aggregation is. So in this case, it's 12.7. If we scroll down here, we can now say, hey, anytime our voltage goes below 13, let's say, let's turn that red. Let's go ahead and change this back. And now I'm going to add this block to our dashboard. When this block is added, it gets added to the bottom. We now have the ability to drag this into different locations. We can also rearrange this block. Once we do that, we can now flip back to our end user experience here. And if I refresh this page, you'll notice that it went ahead and put that block in for us automatically. So I didn't have to touch any HTML, CSS, JavaScript, do a redeployment, do any of that. I could basically go to the Losant dashboard, quickly add new features, new blocks, and expose those immediately to my end users, to my customers. So now that we understand how we can go from getting data from a Losant virtual device into a dashboard and ultimately to an end user experience, let's now jump in and find out how we can get data from your actual physical devices into that Losant virtual device, because then we kind of have that complete picture. So to do that, I'm going to come over here into the left-hand nav bar again, and I'm going to open up workflows this time. Starting out, we're going to go into an application workflow, and I'm going to click on this one here. And what I want to show here is really this workflow over here to start with. This one workflow that you see is going to be doing data ingestion and pre-processing of data for us. In this case, it's receiving data over a webhook, but it could easily be something like MQTT as well, where we would just pull this into the same workflow. We could put something on here like data and then a wildcard. What this one workflow is doing for us, whether it's over a webhook or whether it's over MQTT, is that all of your devices, regardless of customer site, regardless of location, all of your devices are reporting data into this one workflow. And when data gets reported into this one workflow, we can see that live streaming of the data here. So if I just mouse over this, you can see the path that it took. So just real quick, as data comes in, we're using a device get node here. Let me pause this data that just came in so we can kind of take a look at it to see how these workflows work. So data came in. We're going to use this device get node, and we're going to query all of our virtual Losant devices to see if we already have a device that was created that represents the device that just sent data in. So the device that just sent data in sent us in the serial number that you can see here. So we're going to query all of our Losant devices for that serial number. And you can see we're using our handlebar templating here in order to pull this dynamic information off to use it in our query here. And as you remember, our Losant devices, when we set them up, each one of them have that unique identifier on here of a serial number. So in this case, go ahead and find that device. If you find that device, we're going to save that information down here into working.device, which saves it onto our payload, which means we can now use that data in nodes below that device get node. So if we open up this device, we can see that we have all of that information associated to that device. So device tags, and we also have all of those attribute tags that we were looking at before. So now we go down to this conditional. We see that we do have the device that already exists. We're going to take this path here. If it didn't, we would come to a device create, where we could create that device on the fly, and we could even associate device recipes to it. Device recipes are just set up over here on the left-hand side. You can set those device recipes up that way. What we do then is we can set up a conditional. Hey, let's check for a threshold breach that a battery voltage went below 11. If that's the case, we can go ahead and set up an event. With the event, we can put in that dynamic information using our handlebar templating. This event will be exposed in that end user experience. We could also use nodes down here like our Twilio node, SMS, SendGrid, and email node in order to send those alerts via email and SMS as well. So we could easily add those into this workflow. And then ultimately we end up down here at this orange device state node. This orange device state node is really important in a workflow. What this does is it's actually saving data into our Losant device, so into our time series database. So in this case, you see all the data that was reported in. We have things like battery voltage. I can right click on that, copy the full key path. I'm going to come over here and use those handlebar templates, or those handlebar templates, paste that in here. And now every time this orange device state node runs, and again, I can enter in attributes for all of these if I want to. Every time this orange device state node runs, that's what's causing this to flash over here where we're saving time series data into our Losant device. And if you don't want to enter in all of this data, there's obviously easier ways you can do that. That's actually what I'm doing here, where I'm just referencing a payload path in order to save all that data automatically. Okay, so now that we have one workflow that is responsible for pre-processing our data and saving that data into a Losant device, our time series database, let's look at some post-processing stuff as well. So every time a device reports data into the Losant virtual device, whether that's from a orange device state node like you see here, there's also other ways to get data into a Losant virtual device. You can use MQTT to send that data directly to this Losant device and skip an application workflow. You can use our Gateway Edge agent in order to send data directly to a Losant device and skip the application cloud workflow. Regardless of the method you use and how the data gets to this Losant device, what happens is every time new data is reported into this Losant device, we can use these green device state triggers. So we have them up here. It's just this device state trigger right here that we can drag and drop into our workflows. Once we have those into our workflows, we can now configure them to say, we only want to trigger this workflow based off of one specific device or based off some subset of our devices by using that tagging mechanism. So in this case, anytime a device of this model type reports data, it's going to trigger this workflow and run this workflow. And in this case, we're checking battery voltage thresholds. So this is a way to pull out that post-processing data from our pre-processing workflow and build it over here in post-processing. We also have this one that's set up for a different model type. So let's say that this model has a battery voltage and a manifold temp that we want to check. We can easily set that up here. And again, you can use any tagging mechanism up here. So by company, by location, by customer, by firmware version, whatever it is, in order to trigger a workflow based off of a device reporting data into the Losant platform and being saved into our time series database. One other thing to show over here is that we have workflow metrics. So every time it runs, we can see how often it has ran over the last 24 hours, let's say, over the last 7 days. So this one has ran 133,000 times, an average runtime of 10 milliseconds. There's no errors to report. Each time it reports data in here, we can see how long it takes to run too. So this one took 18 milliseconds. This one took 6 milliseconds. And we can actually open this up and look at the timing tab to see which nodes are taking the longest. So hopefully showing this timing tab here and this workflow metrics, it really shows the maintainability of these workflows. So as I'm making changes, I can go back to see the performance impact that it has on it. And also by using just a couple workflows here, one for ingestion, for all of your devices, regardless of site or customer, as well as post-processing. It really shows the scalability of the Losant platform and the maintainability of the Losant platform. Not to mention that this is all visual. So whoever the programmer is coming in to start fresh on this project or pick it up, or to go to a workflow that they've never seen before, they're able to easily jump in and see what's going on and start making changes. I'm going to jump back over here into workflows. I'm going to skip through the experience workflows now. We'll come back to those, and I'm going to go to an edge workflow. If I click on an edge workflow here, we have the ability to build edge workflows in the cloud and deploy those down to edge devices. So you'll notice that this workflow engine looks a lot like the application cloud workflow. A lot of these nodes over here are the same that we saw in the application workflow. However, a lot of them are different. Now that we're in the edge, we have other nodes such as serial nodes, SNMP trap nodes, Allen Bradley nodes for PLCs, BACnet, Modbus, OPCUA, serial, SNMP, things like that. And what this workflow is doing is we drug over a timer node, and we set that up to query data every minute. It will then read Modbus data. We have TCP and serial RTU connections. So here's the IP address. We're going to pull from a holding register an address 1, length 1, and save that as battery voltage. Holding register 2, and save that as manifold temperature. And we're going to save all of that data over onto our payload, onto our debug panel. We call it a payload, like I was showing in the application workflow, so that we have access to that data in nodes below the Modbus read. So once Modbus read runs, we'll now have that data. We can select our device. We can put in our attributes here. We can use the handlebar templating in order to take that data, put it into our orange device state node here. And now, even though we're running in the customer's environment, in their building, out in the field next to a generator, whatever it may be, we can use this orange device state node just like we were doing in the cloud to send this data securely using MQTT up into the Losant platform to save that time series data into our Losant device. Once you build these workflows, you can save them. You can click the deploy button. This is where I can select one device to deploy this to. I can select many devices to deploy this to, or I can use that tagging mechanism like I showed before in order to deploy this to all of a certain model, all of a certain customer, all to a certain location, things like that. And once I click the deploy version, this will be deployed down to that gateway and it will start running and executing immediately. So hopefully that helps explain how we get data from your physical devices, and we showed a couple different ways to do that, and there's many more. How to get that to the Losant virtual device, since we've already shown how to go from a Losant virtual device to the end user experience. So now what I want to do is I actually want to switch back into this end user experience and go through some of this real quickly, and then that will complete the platform walkthrough demo. So you'll notice that when we logged in here, we have your company at top. So I'm logged in as this company who sold to Sadler Eastberg, my customer, and Tecton Health, my customer. And each one of these have many different locations and offices under them. If I would have logged in as a Sadler Eastberg corporate engineer, let's say, I would have only had access to see all of the devices under me, and I would have no clue that Tecton Health even exists. If I logged in as a facilities manager at San Bruno Medical Office, I would only be able to see the generators that are there on site. So let's jump into the back end to kind of show how we build this hierarchy and how we do asset controls in order for certain customers and certain customers with certain access rights to be able to only see their data. Because as you can tell, this is a huge headache in order to figure this stuff out, but the Losant platform does a really good job of helping you with that. So if we flip back here and we go to the bottom down here into end user experiences, I'm going to click on users and groups here. If we flip back to a device, you'll remember that on one of our devices, we had this tagged with a group. In this case, it was San Bruno Medical Office. So now if we go back to our experience users and groups, we built out that exact same hierarchy back here. So if I click on one of these end child groups, you'll see that we have a bunch of customers here that have access in this group. This could be facilities manager 1 at customer.a.com, facilities manager 2 at customer.a.com, things like that. All of these users have access to any device that is tagged with group equals San Bruno Medical Office. If we go to another child group here, same thing. We have members here who have access to devices that are tagged with group equals, and then this is a different value than we saw before. In this case, as we go up the chain, we have other users being applied here, but we are no longer tagging devices because these parent relationships automatically have access to all of the child devices that are below them. The final thing to show with end user experiences is that when I click on a device here, in this case, you'll see up here in the URL that it took me to an endpoint /device details. So let's go into the backend of Losant again to show what happens when a user navigates and hits an endpoint like that. So if we come over here and we go to Experience Edit, you'll see all these endpoints we created, and you can create other ones by pressing this plus button. I already have this device details one created, so let's go ahead and click on that one. You'll notice that this is a GET request for /device details. Authenticated users must have access. If they are unauthorized, we're going to redirect them to the login page. So a quick detour, since we're building all of this HTML, CSS, JavaScript, this entire end user experience in the Losant platform, I can actually click on that login page and you'll see all of that login HTML, CSS, JavaScript code here in this page. So let's go back to where we were. And if you were building this with React or Angular, something like that, you wouldn't have these pages here, but you would still have all of these endpoints here and these workflows here in order to generate the data and give it to that React or Angular app, whatever it is that you built it in. So back to here. If you are authorized, we're going to respond back with an experience workflow. So we haven't gone over an experience workflow yet, but if you remember, that's where we can build this custom API in order to serve this data to the end user experience. So here's that workflow here, get device details. I can also get to it by going to the usage tab and clicking on endpoint get device details. So what this workflow does now is every time a user navigates to that page like I just did, it's actually going to trigger this workflow here. And when it does, we'll be able to see that user accessing it here, and we'll be able to see the payload here. And when they access that endpoint or when they request that endpoint, you'll see here is some of the data that we get. So we get access to who the end user experience is that's logging in. We can see their first name, last name if they have that configured. We have any tags that are associated to them. We have the experience groups that they have access to. So that is the customer that they belong to. With all of this information, we can go ahead and verify that this user does indeed have access to the device that they're requesting, or make sure that the device that we're giving them access to, that they do have access to it. We can use things like our data time series block here in order to select one device or many devices using tags or just by selecting the devices here. And then we can select the attributes that we want to use. So battery voltage in this case, we can select the time range and resolution and the aggregation method that we want to use. We can then bring this data and respond back to the front end. So now the front end can expose that data and share that to the end user. So with that really completes everything that I wanted to show in this platform walkthrough. There's a lot more of the platform to explore, such as application templates that cover many IoT use cases, Jupyter notebooks, and integrations with services like Azure Event Hubs. So if you would like to see more of the platform or have questions on what I went over today, please reach out by emailing hello@losant.com. Thank you.